Today we are here on our installment of the Head First Coach Podcast, Coach's Corner Podcast with Coach Melissa Finley from Swarthmore Softball. And today we're going to be talking about differences in high academic recruiting from other college programs. Little background on Coach Finley. Coach played her college softball at Princeton, where she graduated as the all-time program home run leader and also won Ivy League Player of the Year. After that, she went into coaching at Penn and Colgate before coming over to Swarthmore, has been at Swarthmore since 2018, where she's compiled a 661 impressive winning percentage, 127 and 65 over those years, Centennial Conference champions in 2023, and also Centennial Conference Coach of the Year in 2022. Coach Finley, thank you for joining us and for being here to share some insights on the recruiting process.
Thank you for having me.
So to dive right in, the topic is, what's different about high academic recruiting. So to start big picture, what do you as a coach at a great school, what do you identify as a few key differences in recruiting at a program like Swarthmore that's different from other programs? And how do some of those factors change how you recruit players?
Yeah, I think, right, we have to find athletes that are excited about the academic challenge that Swarthmore presents. They have to be the type of people that are always kind of doing something, always looking to challenge themselves, always wanting to, or being comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. And on top of that, can they also play softball? So that balance piece there of what they're doing on the field is also mimicking what they want to do in the classroom, meaning they're self-motivated, they work hard. Like I said, they're excited about the challenge ahead.
So you touched on it a little bit, but obviously to run a great college program, you need players who can play on the field. That obviously is a really important threshold for players that you recruit. In addition to that on-field skill set, what else are you looking for in a program like Swarthmore? What are the other pieces of the puzzle that you need to put together as you recruit a player, initially, and then as you move through the process with them?
Yeah, so I always I get this question a lot from recruits when I'm talking to them, what do you look for? And I answer this question pretty much the same every time. The first is I do look for the right fit for Swarthmore, right? Meaning you are excited about the academic challenge. You are a really hard worker, you're self-motivated. You're a little quirky. Swarthmore's known to be a little quirky. And then on top of that, then I look to, okay, are you the right fit for my program? Right? And a lot of those qualities are the same. Are you self-motivated? Are you a hard worker? Are you a great person and great teammate? And then, the next piece is the talent piece and how are you filling that puzzle piece of what we're looking for, on the field that's going to help us achieve our goals.
So zooming in on the academic piece a little bit as well, what is the role that academics plays? Like what as you move through the process with recruits, what are the pieces of their transcript, test score? Like what are the things that you need to put together? And to some degree, what is the timeline for putting those things together as you work through from, let's say you meet a player at a Head First event as a rising junior? How do you kind of put those pieces together over the next year plus to recruit them?
So we have to look at their transcripts as early as possible is really helpful to make sure that they are doing well in their coursework, but also the rigor and the types of classes that they're taking is really important as well. They have to be, if their school offers it, they have to be taking AP honors, those types of classes in order to even be in the conversation of attending a school like Swarthmore. So seeing that really early on helps. Now, every school is a little different in what they offer or what maybe sophomores aren't allowed to take APs and things like that. So we do take that into consideration. But for us, the main kind of baseline is that we look for top 10% of your class. So your GPA should be high, but every school is different. So I don't try and give a number per se. It's more just making sure that you're doing well in those challenging courses that are leading you to be in the top 10% of your class.
Yeah, and so when it comes to sorry.
So I was gonna say, as we go through, the timeline is that we can't really move on prospects, or I try not to get too excited about prospects until the end of their junior year, because my admissions office likes to take a look at the full junior year transcript, which is the most important year and the most telling year as to kind of what what the expectation will be moving forward. And for us, we're still remain test optional, so that's a nice feature for us, I think. But obviously, the higher the score you get, the more it might be able to help your application.
So that's raises two interesting questions. One that I'll touch on first is, so with the school being test optional, that's obviously like historically has been one of the pieces of the kind of dossier, the file that you're able to bring over to admissions. How has that changed, or has that changed the way that you recruit and the way that, the importance placed on transcript or extracurriculars or interview, or, the kind of different pieces of that file that you work with admissions on to bring in a recruit?
Yeah, to be honest, it hasn't changed a lot. A lot of times it was an indicator. It was an easier time for me indicating, if they were on track
Mhm.
to, be a strong candidate for Swarthmore. So without those kind of test scores or that, then I have to take a closer look at that transcript, and sometimes I'm better at reading it than other times. But I will say the only thing that it maybe kind of changes in our process is that they now include a writing portion to our academic pre-read, which is the portion that we send in over the summer, to see if they are on track for admission to Swarthmore. And that writing piece and component has become a lot more important with going test optional. But the transcript has always been the most important piece, with or without testing.
Yeah, and that's not just the grades, but the course loads, as you mentioned. Are you challenging yourself? When do you start challenging yourself? That all makes total sense. I mean, I think that it aligns with what we hear from coaches across the board in terms of whether test optional or not. This kind of whole file, this holistic look at a player as they work with admissions. The other thing that you touched on there that I would love to zoom in on a little bit is the timing. You said that you can start to get excited about a prospective student athlete after their junior year, because that's when you start to see, 3 years of a transcript. And if they have a test score, if they are going to have a test score, that's probably when they're building it out. It's the year where they load up on the most APs and honors classes. So how is that timeline different at a school like Swarthmore than at other programs, Division 1, Division 3, high academic, not like, is that a unique timeline for you to work with student athletes?
Yeah, I think so, and I think, the D1 timeline is obviously just a little faster, and so, sometimes we come across athletes who are panicking and are worried, and we're like, "No, we're just getting started," so it's also a communication piece on our end to make sure that they know our timeline, that, yeah, we really don't start, making any movements on recruits until, after their junior year, and I wrapped up this past class in November. So it's a longer process, it's a more drawn out process, but it is because of that academic piece is, you know, it is what it is, and I can't really move it or change it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and well, it also, I think, creates some space in the recruiting process. I talk with a lot of families, and yeah, it certainly can be frustrating for players and coaches both who want to say like, I really like this player, I really like the school. I need to see X, Y, and Z more before I can fully commit to this. But I think it does also create some space in the process for players and coaches to assess holistic fit even better. And so, which leads into my next question, which is like, how important is something like cultural character team fit as you work through the recruiting process? You mentioned, Smarthmore is a little bit quirky. You're looking for some of those pieces of cultural fit at the school. How important are those, quote unquote, intangible or off field, off transcript type things as you work through the process with recruits?
For me, in my program, it's everything. I will put personality, traits ahead of talent every single time. Because if you have the right cultural fit for my program, then you're going to get better when you're here, right? I think I have a fantastic coaching staff. So it's kind of one of those things where I can't make you want to work harder. I can't make you want to be a better teammate. But if you already are those things, then like I said, you're going to be a great fit. And there's enough talented softball players out there that I can find the right fit for my program, and I don't have to force anything. I love my job. I get to work with some fantastic people every single day, and I want to have fun when I go to work and the people that I coach. And so if I'm having fun on the field and they're having fun on the field, and it kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So finding people that, yeah, fit not only the culture of the school, but the culture of my program, again, comes well above and beyond talent. And, recruits, I think, are always surprised to hear that, like, when we're at the field, it's very rare that I write down the outcome of their at bat or the outcome of XYZ, right? I'm watching their reactions. I'm watching how they interact with people. I'm watching just their effort level. So, do they look like they even want to be there? Things like that is what I'm watching because I can see on a film how they swing or how they, but those intangibles is what I'm at the field to see.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and I think that it's something that goes unnoticed by some portion of players who are working through this process. They're like, "Oh, I went 0 for 4, or I went 4 for 4." And one thing that we see a lot is that coaches are looking. I mean, certainly they're looking for the skill set on the field, but you all are looking at so much more than that as well. So, what are some of those ways that that players in a showcase setting or in a travel ball setting at a tournament, how are they demonstrating these things in interactions with you, interactions with their teammates? Like, what are the key things you're looking at to say, that's a kid who I need on my team because I know that they're a good teammate, they're a good cultural fit, they're going to be additive with, the 35, 40 hours I'm spending a week with these kids in the spring. That's an important piece of the puzzle. What are the things you look for to help assess that?
I mean, I can give a couple examples of athletes that I have on my team now that they did that thing that made me say, "Yep, I that's a fit for us." One was she was at a camp and she stayed after and helped pick up all the balls and help
Mm,
put away the equipment. And, I've never had a kid at camp do that. And now, if more kids want to come to my camp and do that, that'd be great. But, she went above and beyond
yeah.
doing that little thing, and it wasn't forced, right? It was just her way of being. And then another one, she was playing shortstop, and her third baseman went down and got hit pretty hard with a ball, and she went over and put her glove under her head,
Mm.
and like sat with her till like the trainer got there. And so I was like, again, just that little sign of like just that little bit of thinking of like, hey, like, how can I make her more comfortable? Right? That's a good teammate. So those kind of things, it doesn't have to be such a big grand gesture, but even just something as simple as saying please and thank you, and picking your teammate up, and how you step into the box, but also, yeah, if you strike out, how are you walking away from that at bat? Are you helping your next teammate out in what you saw, or are you hanging your head and angry at the umpire, or those kinds of things? So
Yeah, those are really really great examples. I love that kind of like, and it's totally organic and natural. It's unprompted. It's I just want to stick around and be helpful because I know that somebody has to do this, or being a good teammate means doing this in that moment. That's so important for for them to be successful, but then also for your team to be successful. It seems like that cultural fit is really important. As you assess the on-field plus some of these character pieces, what are the different touch points that you quote unquote typically have with players as they work through? You see them at a tournament, you see them at a showcase, you see them at your prospect camp, you see them at a on campus. Like, what are the different touch points that you have to make these assessments generally?
yeah, I like a variety of touch points. It's very, very rare that I ever have somebody come to my program that I've only seen play once or seen in one capacity. I think it's important to, I like having them come to our prospect camps or even at a head first camp where you get the chance to interact with them. You can have those conversations. You can see if they can make adjustments. You see how they react to your coaching style, is important. But then it's also really important to see them with their own team when they are comfortable. Are they leaders on the team? Are they communicating? Are they hustling when they're not necessarily right in front of us?
Yeah,
Um,
those two, even just those two examples, those two settings make a lot of sense to me because I think that on the one hand, you mentioned like, look, you have a great coaching staff. You know that wherever somebody comes in as a player, they're going to get X% better, and that X is a pretty big number if they're coachable and have the right approach and right mindset. So in a context like a head first where you do interact with them, do you have the sense to gauge that kind of coachability to some degree? Like, how do they respond to adversity? How do they bounce back from a strikeout? Do they take advice? Are they willing to engage in these conversations in what ultimately is a fairly pressured environment? Like, is that a piece of what you're looking for at a camp?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like, if there's, usually a lot of times at Head First, if there's somebody there that I know I'm interested in, I'll go out of my way to either ask them a question or, prod them a bit or, push them a little to see, yeah, how do they react? Or, yeah, if I give them a coaching advice, how are they receiving it?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's really important. And
Yeah.
yeah, I purposely do those things in those environments, when I'm looking to add that element to it, that touch
Yeah.
point, as you said.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, in that travel ball tournament, like as much as I love the energy during the games at our camps, nobody's keeping score, and those games don't necessarily matter in the same way that they do at a tournament. But that's another key place where you can say, oh, this person works with, like, their relationship with their teammates are deeper. The way that they're engaged with this game that does matter is a different context to assess that aspect of, how competitive are they? How do they respond in a situation that matters, that's not going their way, that is going their way? Is that fair to say that, like,
Mhm.
that kind of travel ball tourney also helps you assess that aspect?
Yes, absolutely. That's correct.
Okay, nice. Um, all right. I think it's time for the lightning round.
All right.
So, a handful of questions that we're going to ask all college coaches that are shorter answer, a little bit quicker, just kind of like the first couple things that pop into your head. So, what is a question that recruits should be asking more in the recruiting process?
How much will this cost?
Hmm. Mom and dad like that answer, I think. Okay. What's the pitch for Swarthmore to recruit that you like? What makes Swarthmore unique?
I think it's absolutely the support that they get, not only from us as a coaching staff, but across campus, from their faculty members to their deans. They really lift up our student athletes in a way that I've never seen before to help them and guide them to what their future goal is.
I love that.
And they set them up for success in a way that, like I said, I've never seen before, and it's
I love
it's
that.
it's pretty special to be a part of.
Yeah. What is an off-field action, habit, or interaction that stands out to you and immediately gets a kid's name highlighted on your recruiting sheet?
Positive energy.
Love it. Absolutely. And finally, what is the number one thing that you look at first in a potential recruit? You show up on a field, you're the first thing you look for. If you're like, all right, I'm going to this tournament and I'm looking at that shortstop, what's the first thing you look for when you arrive at that field?
Athleticism.
How do you judge that? What's the take on that?
Quick twitch, good glove, quick feet. Yeah, you know it when you see it.
All right.
Because then if they have general athleticism, like I said, I can coach them, and then we figure out if they're the right fit from there.
Coach Finley, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and for the insights on Swarthmore and on the recruiting process.
Yeah, thank you, and I look forward to, seeing you guys this summer.
Absolutely.